Next question. How are you planning on expanding your farm?
We're not planning to expand the farm at the moment. We're sort of consolidation of the farm, paying down debt, and we're actually expanding the hospitality business, which is just a slightly different aspect.
Yeah. What crops and livestock do you grow?
So we have a mixed farm. We do still have some beef cattle, only a handful. We have deer, again only a handful. We're mainly sheep, and we have a mix of sheep. We have Dooney merinos, so meat merinos, and also we do have some Suffolks, so some crossbred lambs, but cropping is actually probably 75% of our business in terms of income. We grow canola, fava beans, durum wheat, bread wheat, feed wheat, malt barley, feed barley, oats, triticale, oats and vetch, that sort of thing. A little bit of hay, but not, yeah. So that's probably 75% of our farming business is cropping.
And out of that crop and livestock, how much do you think gets destroyed by diseases or pests?
I guess we're fairly proactive in terms of fungicides with disease. So disease can be quite an issue in all of our crops at the end of the day. So some things get a fungicide this seeding, some things get a fungicide later on, some things get multiple fungicides. Beans, we don't grow chickpeas or lentils. They're normally quite, they can get quite a lot of disease in them as well. So yeah, we use quite a lot of fungicide. Insecticide use is fairly minimal. We really only use insecticide on our canola and sometimes our beans, depending on early on in the season we might use some insecticide on our canola just while it's established, and then late in the season when it's potting up, sometimes we use insecticide for various just grubs. Yeah. Same thing with our peas and stuff. Sorry, not peas, we don't grow peas anymore. We beans, just any sort of pest that get into the pods causes grief. But no, I would suggest that it costs a few dollars a hectare in terms of what we spend on fungicides and insecticides. Insecticides are generally pretty cheap. Some of the softer ones we use, if we've only got one pest, we do try to use a soft insecticide where we can. It just takes out that pest and doesn't take out the beneficials. That does tend to be more expensive though. Often the broad spectrum insecticides are pretty cheap, whereas the softer ones, the more targeted ones are a bit more expensive a hectare, but it's probably, in the scheme of things, on our herbicide complete chemical bill, I would say probably 20% of it might be insecticides and fungicides, possibly.
Yeah, and where's your crop and livestock going? So where do you sell it up to?
So different things. So our canola mainly goes to Europe, is exported to Europe. Durum wheat goes locally in the San Remo, and also is exported as well, again to Europe for pasta. The bread wheat is primarily exported. I think a lot of it goes to Indonesia and China. We have actually put stuff straight on boats here in Adelaide. Malt barley generally goes to domestic maltsters. Feed barley, some of that's exported. We do tend to store a bit of grain on farm, which is delivered direct to domestic end user markets here. So we do deliberately grow feed wheat, which is probably a little bit unusual in this part of the world, but we deliberately grow feed wheat, which goes to some of the local feed mills. It goes into chickens and pigs and that sort of thing. And the same thing with barley. Same thing, it goes into local feed mills, or it goes into local feedlots, that sort of thing. So it's a bit of a mix of international and domestic.
Yeah. What do you think what is the size of your farm and what's the cost of maintaining it?
Our farm's about 2,600 hectares. I do another 700 hectares of farming for my uncle. It probably costs us, in terms of maintenance, what do you mean in terms of running a farm for a year or everything? It probably costs us somewhere in the region of $500,000 a year to run a farm.
What's the average production?
1.8. Average production, so canola for us is somewhere around 1.8, 2.1, 2.2 tonne a hectare. That's pretty normal, so close to 2. Wheat is generally 4 and thereabouts, 4 tonne a hectare. So we anything less than 4, you're pretty disappointed. Anything better than 5, you're pretty happy. So somewhere between 4 and 5. Barley's slightly better than wheat in a poor year and slightly less than wheat in a good year, often. So similar numbers, 4 to 5. We don't tend to grow a lot of open hay. That can be quite high yielding, sort of 8 to 10 tonne a hectare of hay. Favour beans generally somewhere between 2 and 3.5, depending on it's very dependent on the weather conditions when it's flowering. What else do we grow? Oats, sort of, they can be somewhere around, again, 3.5 to 4 tonne a hectare, which is a lot of oats just because they are a lot lighter than wheat or barley. In terms of livestock, we have a mix of pastures or paddocks that livestock graze. So on our more improved pastures, you can actually graze them relatively heavily, whereas on our sort of more native grass out in the hills, it's much, you can't carry anywhere like the same number of stock. I'm trying to think what you'd actually carry. I mean, this time of year we can run some pretty heavy stocking rates, but it's mainly through, we grow sort of somewhere between 300 odd hectares of oats and vetch every year, which we plant early. Hopefully, if we get an early rain in early April, and that provides quite a bulk of sheep feed through the winter and spring, and you can graze that very heavily.
Do you think you're making a profit from farming?
We are. There's a few big costs. So, and there's some things in terms of gross margin. If there's no nasty surprises, we do make a profit farming. We pay quite a lot of money to the bank for privilege of borrowing money. We pay quite a lot of money to finance companies for the privilege of owning machinery. We do have 2 full-time labour units. Another guy used to be full-time, is now part-time, and myself full-time on the farm. So our labour costs are relatively high too. But no, we do. Like in a normal season, it all comes down to, obviously, with a big part of our business being cropping, it all comes down to yield and price. And if wheat's at $250 a tonne and we grow average yields, we can, we make a profit. That's not a drama. Where we fall in a big hole is if we have a really nasty low production sort of year due to frost, through a really nasty frost. We did have one of those 3 or 4 years ago. We had a really, really bad frost that probably took $500,000 out of our production. And poor international grain prices. If international grain prices are poor, well, that all flows through to Australian grain prices. And at one point there, wheat was sub $200 a tonne, and basically at $200 a tonne, unless you're growing massive yields, you do not make money growing wheat. So yeah, in a normal year, I guess I'd budget somewhere around, anything from, I remember we used to try to grow $1 million worth of grain, and now we grow $2 million worth of grain. We'll try to go $2 million worth of grain, so we'd probably make, once you take all costs into account, somewhere around about $250,000 profit if everything goes our way, I suppose. But you don't really farm for the normal year, you farm for the good year. I guess you've got to be an optimist, and so I'm sort of, you can go backwards in a big way with, like I say, with a it's a pretty expensive game. So in actual fact, say we spend $1.8 million a year just doing what we do, and we grow, once you take livestock into account, you're making $300,000 or $400,000 profit, $200,000 profit, $150,000 profit. Most years you hope you're making profit and you're paying some debt off.
Yeah. Do you support GMOs?
Yes, I'm not a big fan of. I'm not necessarily a big fan of the big multinational companies that push them, and there is certainly an element of that I'm not really all that keen about. But fundamentally, GMOs, under the right circumstances, can do some pretty useful things for farmers, and I think it's probably short-sighted that in South Australia we cannot grow them. I do appreciate that some people, GMOs can mean people get into this circle of needing they grow the crops, so then they've got to buy the fertiliser. They've got to buy the chemical, which is all proprietary stuff, and sometimes there's closed loop marketing and all the rest. So in effect, farmers are getting shafted yet again. That's the unfortunate thing about being a bog standard farmer, is you're a commodity producer, and basically at the end of the day, the more you can produce, the more money you make. But it is only a commodity, so it's only a relatively low value product, and GMOs have certainly elsewhere in the world where there's yield advantages potentially. There's chemical flexibility that some of these things can give you, a way of dealing with a weed, the problem weed that you have that you can't otherwise deal with. That neither of those, yield advantages does interest me, but I think the technology potentially could lead. For instance, frost can be an issue for us, it can be an issue for a lot of guys. There are wheat varieties that aren't actually available to us as farmers today, but they have crossbred wheat that can handle 4 degrees more frost than our wheat can, and if you gave me a wheat that can handle -2, that would pretty much take frost more or less out of the equation for us. I would grow that wheat even if it was only a feed wheat, and even if it was a GMO wheat. I think there are some potential advantages that the GMO could bring, mainly through just speeding up the breeding process, and alright, they might create some Frankenstein thing where you go and get a gene out of one thing and put it in something completely unrelated. But still, the research should be done, and farmers at the end of the day probably, I think, should have the flexibility to make that choice if it suits their circumstances. And I think in a lot of cases we wouldn't necessarily grow GM, especially if there is a verifiable real price premium for non-GM. But often as farmers you are producing a commodity, and GM, non-GM, the price difference can be pretty minimal. And I say if there's agronomic advantages that could potentially make a big difference in your rotation, then I'd like the choice.
Alright, well, thanks for letting me interview you. That's all the questions we need, I believe.
Sure.
Yeah.